You are listening to the Spiritual Warrior Coach with Barbara Savin, the podcast for discovering how powerful your wisdom, compassion, and courage is. Get ready to join Barbara and her guests as they explore and offer you advice on how to reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. And now, here's the host of the show, Barbara Savin.
Well, thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, and I am here to help you reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, Reiki master teacher, energy healing specialist, life coach, and best-selling author of Gentle Energy Touch, The Beginner's Guide to Hands-On Healing. You know, I have been helping my clients for over 35 years, and the older I get, the more wisdom seems to come through. So isn't it time that you believe in yourself? You know, your mind is going to provide you with your greatest challenges in life because it's so very, very powerful. So let's use that mind for positive thinking, creating harmony, balance, peace, love, happiness, and anything else that your heart desires. Because one day the world will tap you on your shoulder and say, this is your time to shine. And speaking about shining, I'm going to bring my guest on right now. Hello there, John. How are
Hello,
you?
Barbara. Thank you for having me, fellow East Coaster.
Yes, I know. You're from Jersey. I'm from Brooklyn.
Yeah. I of course, you said you live in California. I don't know if they have good pizza out there. I know we don't have any in Utah, so I do have to get back occasionally to have some of that.
Yeah, well, the pizza over here is like this, but it's not the great. It's not Brooklyn pizza, New York pizza.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
So, John, let me tell my listeners a little bit about you.
Sure.
John Moyer, he is a professional hypnotist and YouTube creator of hypnosis and meditation content for over 230,000 subscribers. And
that's
his
250 over 250,000 now.
Oh, wow. I tell you, I'm amazed at that, believe me. And his journey began as a produced screenwriter of several independent films and spending 25 years as a professional stand-up comedian. And feeling his life had hit a wall, especially personally, with a divorce, being a single dad, stuck in a loop of bad relationships, and struggling financially, John realized something needed to change. And that something wasn't just his outside world. John knew it was everything inside of him. And that's when he discovered the power and ability of the mind through meditation and hypnosis. And John now dedicates himself full-time to his YouTube channel, sharing what he's so passionate about to benefit as many people as possible. Oh, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Let me tell you, I listened to that YouTube channel, and your meditations are phenomenal. They are just amazing. And I could see why you have millions of people that go on there all the time.
Yeah. And, it's interesting how we talk about, kind of when we come into alignment and things just show up for us that we may have never imagined or have never expected, but it's able to sustain us in the things that we're, preferring to experience in life. And it was a really strange thing for me because, I was doing stand-up comedy for 25 years. And when I went to film school, one of the things that they teach you when you're learning to write is that all drama is conflict, right? So it's like Home Alone. There's not going to be any kids stuck home alone if the parents didn't leave, and the conflict of the burglars trying to break into the house. So I kind of put that paradigm and applied it to my life with comedy, that all drama is conflict that I can make jokes about. So, the more drama and dysfunction there was in my personal life, it was like I was seeking that out. So I had something to rant about on stage, and that got me jokes on stage. But it didn't take long before I was just completely immersed in this deep, dark hole where I was incredibly unhappy. And that's when I realized that, something had to change, because I was, over 40 years old, divorced, single parent, and like you said, just all the wrong relationships. And you're looking, you think I'm supposed to be halfway through my life, right? And you want to come from a perspective that you think you always know where you're going. But then it was like, it just looked like a dark road of fog, in front of me. And that's when I started to explore and discovered that, there's no out there, right? It's all in here, and it's all in here. And once I made those changes for myself, life changed radically for me, all for the better. And then from that, discovering, hypnosis and meditation for myself, to going on to, learning hypnosis, and then going from stand-up comedy to a stage hypnotist, and then going from just, doing the stage hypnotist to having a platform on YouTube. It was like, I never could have imagined that. You're seeking, your joy, your bliss, and your happiness. And if you let go of how it all can show up, then it all shows up. And that's where I'm at now.
Amazing when we finally surrender.
Yeah, that's really what it is. That's the way I tell people, you let go of judgment and expectations. And, because we put ourselves in boxes. If we start thinking it's got to be this way, and this has to happen, and this has to happen, when you can just let all of that go, and then you're pleasantly surprised about how it all works out.
Oh, it's amazing how it works out. And then you say to yourself, wow, why didn't I think this way a long time ago?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is because we're thinking people, right? And that's the problem. As humanity has evolved, we've devolved from that emotional space, and it's all about, critical thinking, and, what we can see and what we can touch and how we can manipulate and control things. We're constantly trying to think our ways out of something or into something. But when you let go of that process, and you go from what's, here, and then in here, and then that's what creates that energy that resonates out there.
So how long did it take you from all this crazy making things in your life to finally get out of all that and to be your authentic self and to see yourself?
It started for me probably about 2010, and within, a few years, so I would probably say like, 2 or 3 years, I was making that, starting to make that shift. It was kind of in the, the infantile stages of figuring things out. And then I met my wife, Rochelle, and that's when things really accelerated, because it was interesting, because we were both kind of on that exact same path separately. And the way we met, if you want to tell me that it was a coincidence, there had to be about 100 things that had to line up exactly, freakishly, coincidentally, for us to come together. And once we came together, we got together in 2012. We were married in 2016. But I would probably say it was about 5 or 6 years before I really started to feel, things accelerating. But of course, things accelerated as I was able to learn, as I was able to trust myself, and kind of reprogram my mind. Because that's the thing that I always tell people over and over again. How many times, maybe you've been to a seminar, you've read a book, you've seen a movie, you've seen a meme on the internet, and you go, that makes so much sense. Yes, I'm going to do that. And, a couple of days later, a week later, whatever the time is, you're back into the same patterns of the old behavior. And the reason why that is because we see something that resonates with us, so we go, make sense. And the conscious mind says, yes, this makes sense. The subconscious mind says, of course this makes sense, but not for us, because nothing works out for us. We can never get anything right. We're not good enough. We're not capable enough. We're not talented enough. So why bother to even try? And that's one of the things that I always want to drive home to people, is that lasting change and permanent change, and even changing faster, it all happens on that subconscious level.
Without a doubt, because we are our own worst enemies.
Yeah. Because we're constantly conditioned, and our minds are trained to look for patterns. And if somebody's looking at their bank account, and they've got more month left at the end of the money, They constantly go, well, this is how it's always been. There's no way that this is going to get any different. And that's when you make those changes, when you can just tell your subconscious mind to neutralize the old and start inputting the new. That's when it happens.
Oh yeah, like, you talk about a bank account. I tell my grandchildren all the time, and they say, "Oh, I only have this amount of money." I tell them, don't look at it that way. Just look at it as I have an unlimited abundance of money.
Yeah.
You have to change your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that really is the thing, because, energy is feeling. It's not necessarily thinking. A thought can produce energy, but the thought process is when we get bogged down into that, it's got to be this way and doing it this way, and this situation has to be good this way for us to feel good, or this person has to behave this way for us to feel good. No, it's up to us first to make the to resonate that energy that we prefer to experience. And then when we do that, it's amazing how all of a sudden everything out here suddenly becomes a reflection of that.
So now, do you feel that most people actually can't get out of their head, and that's why I feel hypnosis works?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
And the couple things that we experience because of that is because we've also become conditioned as a society, with our technology and our mobile devices. The statistic I read is, I think it's something like Americans check their phones 3 billion times a day. It's probably even more than that. And the thing is that when we're staring at those screens, it literally does create a hypnotic effect. So you're so focused on that, you're blocking everything else out. And you're used to, conditioned to going there, and we get little spikes of dopamine when there's a message or an email, or we see, oh, there's a notification on Facebook, somebody liked what I said. We get that that dopamine spike. But the thing that happens is, because you do literally enter kind of a trance state, and as a hypnotist, it's those states where people are open and receiving to suggestion. And of course, social media does a really, really good job of spreading a lot of negative energy, right? So we're, and the algorithm is designed that way. So if you're engaging with somebody that wants to rant about something, the algorithm is going to start pushing you more,
Into that.
more, posts and things, because they're like, oh, he wants to engage in people that, road rage or whatever. They want to get upset. We know this post got him all worked up, and he was arguing with, so that's, that's what it's that attention economy that we put on. So, and it's it happens in an instant. And then, we've become conditioned that when, man, we're upset about something, we're angry about something, we want to take out our phones and we want to tell the world about it. And then instantly you press send and it goes around the world. And
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah.
How did you get into hypnosis?
What had happened for me was, I was performing stand-up comedy, and I was at an event that there were multiple, kind of entertainment things happening over the course of this day. And the location that we were having my stand-up performance in, at the venue, when I did my show, it was probably maybe half to 3/4 full. The audience was, good enough. But what I didn't realize was that after me, they had booked a stage hypnotist.
Oh.
So I stuck around and I watched this. So, my event was maybe half to 3/4 full. When the stage hypnotist goes on, it's like standing room only, like the place is packed. And I'm watching this guy on stage, and he gets these volunteers on stage. The audience was transfixed. The audience was entertained. It was a great show. And then of course, after the show, he's selling, merchandise, CDs, stop smoking, weight loss, whatever. And the people are just lining up hand over fist, throwing money to, to buy this, this content. And I'm watching all of this, and I went, you know what, if I'm making a change, I can do that. This is something I deserve to do. Of course, I just have to learn how to hypnotize people, right? But I had the ability to be on stage. I I've always had tremendous ability to, kind of improv, with audience and things. It was just that little part about learning how to hypnotize people.
Yeah.
But I
Uh-huh.
wound up going through, a training course for stage hypnosis. And the advantage that I had as to most people is that I already had, a 20 some odd year experience within the entertainment industry. So I had, contacts as far as, entertainment agents and bookers and club owners and things like that. So I was able to go back to them and say, hey, I'm also doing this now. And I was able to just hit the ground running because I had people that knew me and was willing to say, yeah, come and, do your hypnosis show here. And that wound up just, taking off. And, instead of driving, 12 hours, to do some cowboy bar, in Montana where they were going to put me up in a Motel 6 for the night or whatever it was, all of a sudden I'm like doing high-end corporate events. I'm being flown first class. I got to perform on, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. So I was going around the world, doing my show. And that's when things really, really accelerated for me. And that was about 2016 when, that really took off for me. And what had happened from that, as I said, when I saw that hypnotist who was selling his merchandise after the show, that was the big thing. You sell merchandise after the show, but people didn't have CD players anymore. And so selling a CD was kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
And there was this big discussion amongst hypnotists, what kind of product are we going to offer after the show? And we no longer CDs. And then people are talking about thumb drives, well, we could put MP3 files on the thumb drives and we can do it that way. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to try the digital approach and put the content on my website. I'll tell people to go to my website if they, now you're losing a little bit of an element there because people are excited right away that, they want to buy something.
Right.
But what I did was I thought, well, if I put some content on YouTube, maybe, some people might see me there and they'd be interested and they would go to my website and buy my content. It never occurred to me in a million years that people would actually use YouTube as the platform to get this content. And consequently, I had one program for sleep. That was what really accelerated my channel. So people were going to my channel for what they call sleep hypnosis. So, people could, fall asleep. Of course, I am interested in more things than just putting people to sleep. So there's more interesting topics that I have. So I began creating these sleep hypnosis programs that people could fall asleep to, but then continue, to utilize that time when their mind goes down into those alpha and theta brainwave states before they fall asleep, that they could get some powerful suggestions for the mind. But also at the same time, there are people that like to have something continually play while they're asleep at night. So, I have these 8-hour-long programs and, I hear from people all the time, man, maybe I wake up at 3:00, but then I hear your voice and I can fall right back to sleep. And, YouTube just took off.
YouTube took wow, and I know you have so many up there, and you have millions of subscribers, millions of people that have viewed your
Yeah.
hypnosis.
It's like 255,000 subscribers or something, but yeah, millions, and
Millions.
it's interesting because you get a lot of views that aren't, just from your subscribers. I get a lot of people that, that aren't subscribers that listen. And, the subscribe thing is always kind of an interesting thing on YouTube. It's gets kind of hokey sometimes.
Mhm.
But, because there's a lot of stuff, I'll just go back to somebody's channel and watch stuff, even though maybe I don't subscribe, but it's out there for everybody. So I have a good balance of people that are watching, my content.
So now you've done stage hypnosis. What type of stage did you actually hypnotize them on stage, or was it like a funny type of thing, like making them cluck like a duck? I mean, all that stuff
Yeah.
that you see,
Yeah. And it was a
Uh-huh.
case of just bringing the volunteers up and
Mm.
as a hypnotherapist, it's, when you're working with somebody one-on-one, you can kind of cater what that person, is looking for,
Right.
how that person responds. When you're doing stage hypnosis, you have a group of people up here that, you kind of have to move really quickly. I've got about 5 to 7 minutes to do that induction. And, sometimes it is like, as they say, throwing mud up against the wall and seeing what sticks. But when I go up on stage, I want to inspire people and motivate people to want to come up, so you're getting people that are eagerly looking to experience hypnosis. And, once they come up there, um, you kind of take that 5 to 7 minutes, you see what happens. And then, yeah, it's giving them a series of suggestions. You're kind of putting them in these interesting scenarios. You're giving them these suggestions, and then you just kind of watch, how people respond. And of course, it's always entertaining, for the audience members.
Oh, I know. Now, do you feel anyone can be hypnotized, or did you used to have problems, challenges hypnotizing some of them?
I've never had um, a, a challenge having anyone be hypnotized on stage.
Mhm.
Um, and then for me, but of course I've had it when, maybe you have 20 people on stage, and I've had it where 20 people are hypnotized. And of
Mm,
course, but as you know, there's various degrees,
mhm.
for people. It's not a one size fits all. It's a very individual experience. And of course, people's personalities, are different. So you could have, maybe you have 20 people, maybe you have 5 or 6 that are what we would call the stars of the show. And, maybe you might have some people that are just kind of more catatonic, up on stage. But, then there's been times maybe I've had 20 people, maybe there's only 5 left, but those 5 that are left are really good, subjects. But it is interesting to me because sometimes, if it's a corporate event, I have somebody come up and they go, "What are you going to do if nobody volunteers?" I go, "That's not going to be a problem. There's never
Uh-huh.
been a situation where people, don't volunteer, because I always frame everything from the perspective of, we're going to show you how to tap into your mind, and you're going to feel really good. You share with the audience all of the benefits that they can experience.
I can experience.
And the one thing that always gets people, and this was great when I was on the cruise ship, because I would tell people, when you come up and participate tonight, just from being on the stage, being hypnotized, when you go back to your cabins, you're going to have one of the best night's sleep that you've ever had. And even though to me, I go, that doesn't really feel like that much of a big deal, but all the time, the audience is
Deal.
always oohing and eyeing, right? And they want to come up and be a part of that. And of course, being on the ship, I'm on it for the period of time on the cruise. So you're seeing the people from the show, and people will come up to me and they go, "You were right. I can't believe how well I slept, how good I felt from being hypnotized." And then of course, the other thing that I let people know is that if you have a goal that you want to achieve, if there's something about you that you want to change, if there's a negative habit you want to get rid of, if there's a positive habit you want to embrace, when you come up here tonight, we're going to make that possible. And that's a big incentive for people to say, "Hey, you know what? Man, I want to try this." And one of the stories I love telling is, again, from the cruise. I had a woman that came up to me 3 or 4 days after a show, and she said, "I wasn't going to participate. I had no desire to participate. And then when you said you could help me achieve something," she goes, "that was it. I wanted to be a part of it." She said, "Because I'm a chocoholic. Chocolate rules my life. And I know that I deserve to change that." And
Uh-huh.
she goes, that was what I wanted, that was my goal in my mind. And she said, "It's been 3 days." She goes, "I haven't had any chocolate
Chocolates.
in 3 days." And of course, she goes, "My friends can't believe it." And there's chocolate all over the ship. And she goes, "Thank you." And she actually, I connected with her 5, 6 months ago on Facebook. She said, "I don't know if you remember me. I'm the woman that wanted to stop eating chocolate." And it's been, I think at that point, it's been like 4 years. She goes,
Wow.
"I'm still good. No chocolate."
So what happens to the mind of a hypnotized person?
The thing is that they're being able to, and this is the analogy that I use when it comes to hypnosis, and as you know, you've got the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the critical faculty, in between. That's kind of the gatekeeper. And I always tell people it's like the bouncer with the red velvet rope outside of a nightclub that determines who gets into the club and who doesn't get into the club. And, basically what you're doing with hypnosis is you're distracting the bouncer with the red velvet rope So then you can then sneak those suggestions into the subconscious mind. And when they go into the subconscious mind can
Make the
accept them.
changes. Mhm.
And, we've got new neural pathways that, that can be created. And, in the case of doing something on stage, it's kind of a temporary thing. But for people that are looking for long lasting change, it can create that as well. So, you're slowing a person's brain waves down. They're going from that waking state, that beta brainwave state, down to those alpha and theta brainwave states where tremendous things happen to your body physically. It's not just a mental experience, but the body has an increase of dopamine and endorphins, tremendous boost of antioxidants that happen to the body, not to mention reduced levels of cortisone, so we feel more relaxed, we feel
Relaxed.
more at ease. And then those are just the physical benefits, but then of course going into the subconscious mind to be able to make other changes, it just gives us a greater access to make changes there.
It's amazing. I had a very bad accident about 10 years ago where I fell on my face and, rushed to the hospital and during the whole time, bleeding and all this other stuff. I kept on telling myself, yeah, I could have been extremely panicked and crazed,
Yeah.
but I kept on telling myself, Barbara, you need, to calm down, just calm down. And when I finally got there, the doctor, after, doing tests and everything, I mean, unfortunately I crushed my nose, so I needed an operation, but she looked at me, she said, for someone that has had so much trauma right now, I can't believe how calm that you actually are. And I
Yeah.
said to her, well, I'm a hypnotherapist. If I do not have the ability to calm myself, then shame on me for trying to calm other people.
Yeah.
So, the mind, yeah, it could have went either way. I could have been in a state of panic. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. What have I done? And got myself more stressed out. But instead I chose, all right, you can't change this. It's happened. All you can do is just to remain calm, see what the outcome is, and accept whatever it is. So I actually talked myself into just calming myself.
Yeah. And that's, that's one of the things that, that I share with people is that when you experience hypnosis or meditation and you're in a very relaxed, calm, peaceful feeling state, and it's like going to the gym, the more you do it, the more proficient you get, the more you build up that, that muscle in your mind. And your body becomes conditioned so that like for me, as soon as I get down and I sit on my, my meditation cushion, my body goes, oh, this is what this means, and immediately starts to go, into that place. So we can condition ourselves so that if a situation like that does come up, we can tap into, because the subconscious mind is able to recall, we're able to get ourselves relaxed, we're able to feel
Right.
calm, and it can happen right away. But for the person that's just used to seeing the drama and everything goes to hell in a handbasket and it's always going to be terrible, that person's mind is going to pick up that ball with those patterns of drama and panic and fear, and that's what the mind's going to run away with.
So it's so important for us to calm ourselves no matter what happened. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in the hospital 5 weeks ago. Actually, I had to have a parathyroid surgery,
Oh,
and while they're wheeling me into the operating room, I'm telling myself, oh, it's so nice and bright in here and everything will be fine.
yeah.
And I'm actually talking to them and they're looking at me and smiling. And the anesthesiologist looked at me and he says, wow, I wish everybody was like you, so calm and
Yeah.
just appreciating, being in an operating room and seeing all the bright lights. So yeah, it's how we look at things.
You're exactly right. And
Mhm.
the fascinating thing about the mind is that when you experience hypnosis, the mind can't tell what the difference is between what's real and what's not. Now
Right.
that's the mind in general. If you think about watching a movie, right? And if it's a scary movie, all of a sudden, you're feeling those kind of scared, nervous, emotions or whatever the case may be, because consciously, the conscious mind is able to go, this isn't real, but the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. It's just being fed information and then spitting out, a result. So, and that's what you know, I say to people, you can get your mind to believe anything that you want, and your mind is going to respond to that as if it was a real situation. So if your mind believes that, you're fit and you're at your ideal weight, you work out every day, you eat all the good foods, or, whether, everything's going well, you're making enough money, whatever the case may be, if your subconscious mind is believing that, then that's how things are going to begin to, react, and how you're going to respond. And one of the stories I love to tell about that is, I had a woman on stage one time. She was a medical doctor, and the suggestion that I gave her was that her belly button was missing. So, and I gave multiple suggestions to different people on the stage, and you're kind of over here with a couple of people, but there's kind of another show happening, on the other side of the stage with somebody else. And so I hear people laughing, and of course, I kind of know what's going on. And I turn around, and here's this woman. She's standing up. She's looking underneath the chairs. She's looking behind the chair. She's lifting her shirt up. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, my belly button is missing. And she goes, look, I'm a medical doctor. This is impossible. This cannot be, but it is. I've lost my belly button. And it was so fascinating to kind of see that fight between everything that she knew, all of her medical training, and it's not even medical training. Everybody knows we have belly buttons, but all of that was completely overridden by the fact that her subconscious mind was telling her it's gone. It's missing. And she was acting exactly like as if that were the case.
Wow. There's a medical doctor, and a lot of them do not believe in hypnosis at all. So
it is fascinating that, that's one of the things I love so much when I do a corporate event, because now if you're on the cruise ship, it's kind of like Las Vegas, right? Nobody knows each other, and people are always like, were those people real? Were they setups? Were they plants or whatever? But when you do a corporate show, everybody knows each other. And I will have people time and time again go, I didn't believe any of this, and now I do. I work next to that person every single day. There was no way that they could act anything out, that they could do what we saw happening up there. And that's what's always so cool about having people see hypnosis up close and personal. It translates much better when it's, it's a live experience. People might see videos or whatever on YouTube, and whatever, we don't know these people. It's probably fake. But when you're there and you see it, and you see the reactions and you see the responses, that's what makes it so entertaining.
Oh, I can imagine. What are some of the, I'm curious, what are some of the techniques that you actually use to get people into hypnosis, especially stage?
You're moving pretty quickly. So of course, one of the things that, I'll do, a lot of leading and pacing, and I like confusion techniques, because it's one of these things where you just kind of have this toolkit, right? And it's not just one thing that you're doing. You're just kind of going, all right, well, this is the group, this is what I'm working with. So you just kind of take all these different tools out, and you kind of combine them together over the course of 5 or 7 minutes. And I always end that with some fractionalization, where they're opening up their eyes and then closing their eyes, going down deeper, opening up their eyes and closing down even deeper. But that's what I'll do. I'll start out with leading and pacing, some confusion techniques, and then down to some fractionalization for deepening.
Yeah, confusion techniques work pretty well, especially with some of my clients that say, oh, I can't be hypnotized. And something like that, because they're trying to actually in their mind think about it, but it's confusing them. So
it's confusing them. So the bouncer is looking away and distracted.
Yeah.
And then it always cracks me up when people say, oh, I can't be hypnotized. And sometimes one of the jokes that I do when I'm on stage is to let people know that the people that are most receptive to hypnosis are those people with average to higher IQs. And as I found, the higher the IQ, the more receptive somebody is. So when somebody tells me I can't be hypnotized, I'm like, oh, thank you for admitting you have a low IQ. I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, that's funny. So, um, do you still do stage hypnosis, or you're just concentrating now on your YouTube?
Primarily now I concentrate on YouTube. It was, you talk about kind of alignment and things, working out. When the whole lockdown thing happened a couple of years ago, um, I was incredibly fortunate because even though I had, cruise dates canceled and corporate events canceled and graduation gigs and all kinds of things, cancel, I was doing very, very well on YouTube. And then of course, through the lockdowns, people were home, people were stressed. So they were looking for more things to help them be able to cope and adapt and adjust and get through it. So my channel was able to really kind of take off at that point. So I hadn't done a show in 2 years, and I thought, I'm good. I kind of like staying at home, not leaving the house and making videos. But I've started to kind of get back into the performance side of things. A couple months ago, I did a university event, and up this next month, I have some graduation parties. That's kind of the big thing. Growing up in Jersey, it was never a big thing. The kids graduated and then like they were gone. And then out here, when they graduate, they like to take the kids and have them spend the night either in the high school or a rec center or someplace, and they have activities all night for the kids.
Okay.
And one of the things that they love to do is, our hypnosis shows for grad parties. So I'll be doing a few of those this next coming month. So not taking it too hard. I'm just kind of,
Yeah, just going with the flow.
easing myself, back in. But, I do enjoy that experience of, of a live show. But of course, the older I've got, the more I'm like, oh, I just kind of like to hang out at home with the dogs and leave the house and make videos.
Well, yeah, you make a lot of videos. I've noticed a lot of
Yeah.
them. Hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's been, it's been pretty cool. And the fact now, of course, I'm also thinking about, not thinking about, I'm in the process. I'm going to create a second channel that's got maybe like 20-minute meditations, because a lot of people, like the long form content that I have, but there's a whole group of people out there that, prefer to be able to have something during the day that's not 8 hours. They want to get,
It's not,
20
yeah,
minutes.
long.
Yeah.
So, do you see like hypnosis? Where do you see it going in the future? Do you think it's becoming more and more popular?
I really do, because, and it's not necessarily just hypnosis, but the idea of meditation in general. Um, and what's fascinating is that, I think early on as humanity, ancient humanity understood, the power of energy and the power of emotion. And then we got caught up into the thinking stages of things, where we were constantly trying to analyze things, constantly, inventing things, and it all became about what we can perceive and what we can analyze and what we can judge and what we can think ourselves through. And we've kind of thought ourselves onto this precipice of, I not necessarily know where we're going to go, because everybody talks about, all these terrible things, that could happen in the world. And growing up in the 80s, the existential threat was, oh, it's going to be, nuclear war and catastrophe. And then of course the existential threat was, climate change. And my thinking is the existential threat to humanity isn't out there. The existential threat to humanity is in here, with the
Inside.
ability or the lack of the ability to manage emotional states and take charge of ourselves. So seeing more and more people, kind of what I would say, coming into consciousness, they're realizing that, and they're understanding that, and they're tapping into them, themselves. I did a poll on my YouTube community at one point where I asked people, how long have you kind of been practicing meditation? It was like a few months, a few years, longer than 5 years. And the majority of people, it was just a very short window of time previous to, me taking that poll. So more and more people are coming into this, this consciousness. And part of that is tapping into the mind, and
To the
whether
mind.
that's, through hypnosis or, or meditation. And there's sister states of mind. They, they accomplish, the same things with, with different elements, but I see it as people returning back to understanding the power of their own emotions and the power of their own energy, and getting that into alignment here, getting that in check here. It just kind of resonates, and that's where it's going to resonate through humanity, through everyone. And I think we're going to be able to head in a pretty good place.
In a better direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, that's how I feel. We have to tap into inside and allow that love and the goodness that's within us to finally come out
Yeah.
and to spread out throughout the world.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's, I agree 100% with that. And people are realizing that, because we kind of look around and we go, well, this isn't working. It's just like that with me, with my personal life. I go, well, this isn't working. Something has got to change. And once that something changed, then
And everything
it makes the biggest
opened up
difference
for
in the
you.
world. Yeah. Yeah.
I love your hat.
Oh, thank you.
Open the third eye.
Opening the third eye. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
That's what it's all about. And it's so funny because, if you look back, because I commented on your tapestry back there, that I really loved your tapestry. And, you go back 10 years for me, I had no idea, what any of this was. And it's such a profound and powerful part of my life now. It's become part of my programming. It's the prism that I see everything through. And it's just such a tremendous difference going within to change everything without, for the better.
Yeah, around you. So do you still do stand-up comedy?
I
Or
retired from stand-up.
retired from that?
Yeah, that was probably maybe 6 years ago. There was a period of time when I was doing both at the same time. I was doing hypnosis and I was doing stand-up comedy. The thing is I spent the better part of my life just so passionate about stand-up comedy as art. Being funny was my art, and that's what I was committed to. And once I kind of got my act together and I wasn't feeling dysfunctional, I kind of felt like I didn't have anything to joke about anymore. And the other thing too is that a lot of comedy, and I was kind of an angry comic, right? I was always looking for the things that were wrong so I could rant about them on stage. And sometimes that comes at the expense of, other people, whether there's somebody you don't know, if you're just making fun of politicians or celebrities or whatever the case may be, and you're up there, even if you're just telling a story about, the person of Walmart, right? And you're getting all these other people to laugh at somebody else's expense, even if they don't know it. I was just like, I don't feel like I want to be part of that energy anymore. That's not the energy that, that I want to propagate. So, I retired from stand-up comedy, and it's kind of a strange thing because it was such a big part of my life, for so long, but I go, man, I don't miss it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially now with there's just a lot of drama, going on.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
People getting slapped or hit or
People getting
whatever.
slapped, or it's just crazy. And it's funny because I
Mhm.
talk to a lot of my comedian friends, and they're like, man, audiences are emboldened now like we've never seen. If there's somebody that didn't like a joke, a few years ago, well, maybe they'll just shut up. They won't laugh.
Yeah.
They'll drink their drink. He's like, but people are like, but now, man, they're getting angry. They're
Yeah,
yelling at you. They're yelling at you on stage,
Mhm.
or they're jumping up on stage, starting stuff. And it's, again, it goes back to that we're coming to this place where we can't manage our emotions,
Mhm.
and we're just become enabled to immediately act upon that anger, that frustration, whatever it is. And we think we have, license to be able to do it.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame how society has gotten.
Well, the thing is at the same time, I go, yeah, it is crazy. But then you go, well, is this going to be the mirror that holds up, that we're able to look into and go, man, we don't like what we're seeing. And we're going to make, we're going to make things different. So I think that's maybe, as we begin to see kind of how things are devolving, then all of a sudden people are going to stand back and go, whoa, this just isn't working.
Doesn't feel right. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel a lot of people are finally realizing that all that, reacting to situations is not really helping them at all.
Yeah. No,
And that yeah.
yeah. Well, and kind of I've heard this expression before, but it's like people say, it's like everybody's competing in the victim Olympics and everybody wants to win the gold. So
Mhm.
they're constantly, now their patterns in their mind have become conditioned to go, what can I see? What can I spot that's going to make me upset and angry and offended? Then I can tell people I was upset and angry and offended. And therefore I can, play that esteemed victim role. So then all of a sudden I can get, attention and whatnot. And it's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, we see how far it's, gone with, with
Mm.
people. And then we can realize, man, there's a much better way. We can all get along much, much better here. There's more productive ways to be able to interact and discuss differences of, of opinion and how we can work together. And that's kind of what I feel that, that with my purpose is that, I'm not going to take a position on anything. I offer people the tools for them to be able to, manage their emotional states, realize a better way, and then apply that to, the things that they're passionate about, that they're committed to, that they're able to then work constructively to be able to have things, work out for everyone in general.
It's time to change. It's time to, know that we don't need to get angry and frustrated, that it's important to work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just a matter of
Mhm.
kind of pruning those neural pathways that say
Mhm.
this leads to anger, this leads to fear, this leads to being upset. And then saying, you know what, I'm going to create some new neural pathways that link things up to a much more productive, positive state
Positive.
of emotional well-being. And so, yeah, that's what it's all
Yeah,
about to me. It's
it's all
one of the
about.
things
Mhm.
this isn't a quote that's unique or original to me, but I always share that circumstance don't matter. It's our emotional state of well-being, that matters. And when you
Without a
can
doubt.
align that, if you look at things just
Mhm.
from, I always say that there's Newtonian physics people, and then there's like the law of attraction, quantum physics people. Hypnosis works, for both. If you're the
Mhm.
kind of person that thinks I have to specifically physically interact with physical matter to get things done, hypnosis is going to be able to help you do that more effectively. And then, of course, if somebody's that law of attraction, everything's quantum physics type of a person, well, hypnosis is going to work within that subconscious mind so that information that's constantly running that you don't even know about is still going to resonate out into the quantum field and make a difference that way.
Make a difference. So where can my listeners get a hold of you?
Obviously the biggest place to find me is YouTube. Just look up
YouTube.
John Moyer Hypnosis. You can, or just type in John Moyer, you'll find me there. My website is johnmoyer.com, which has got, links to all of my, the social media platforms. So yeah, johnmoyer.com, you can find everything there.
And let me tell you, check out his YouTube. I've listened to quite many of them, and whoa, they are really amazing. As
Thank you.
another hypnotist to a
Yeah,
hypnotist, yeah. And I'm saying to myself, wow, I could definitely have fallen asleep, or I could feel a difference with just listening to your work,
I appreciate
without a
that.
doubt.
I appreciate
Without a
that very
doubt.
much. Thank you.
It's really good. So one more time, where can they get a hold of you?
johnmoyer.com,
Mm-hmm.
JohnMoyer. And you can type in John Moyer on YouTube, or if you type in John Moyer Hypnosis, you'll find me
It
there.
all comes up. Well, John, I thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Barbara. I
taking,
appreciate it.
I know you're busy, and I appreciate you coming on my show.
It means a
And
lot to me.
well, thank you. It means a lot to me too, believe me.
Thank you.
So I would like to leave my listeners with some words, positive words. It doesn't matter how bad a situation has gotten or how far you have veered off the path that you wanted to be on, you can still change it. And all you need to do is create an inner shift. And that might be maybe taking a few hours to just meditate and just breathe, Or it might be maybe taking more time to play and just have fun. Or it might be reciting a simple mantra like, I allow miracles in my life. And, sometimes the smallest things can trigger the biggest, most welcome changes. So be ready to welcome changes and allow them to happen smoothly, quickly, and easily. And again, thank you, John, so very much for being
Thank
a
you.
guest here. And I hope that you heard what you needed to hear. And just visit me at motivateyourlife.net. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Spiritual Warrior Coach Podcast. Also, I'm on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and we are also international. And for those of you maybe interested in learning some energy healing, please check out my book on Amazon, Gentle Energy Touch, The Beginner's Guide to Hands-on Healing. So again, thank you all very much for listening, and have a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.